What's up, friends? It's Marquis Smart and Hayes, and it's time for the Monday Moment. All right, so let's just get there. There's this whole thing going around called, what is it? Imposter syndrome, right? You ever heard of that? You ever experienced it? All right, it's trash. It's just another buzzword. Here's the deal. Have you ever been like me, where you live the majority of your life not thinking you're good enough? I know I talked a little bit about that last week, more specifically about an instance, but I'm talking about the overall tone. Yeah, your boy, that was me. I lived a lot of my life thinking I wasn't good enough for whatever reasons that existed. And it came a point where I had to ask myself, whether you're good enough or not, what are you going to do with it? And I know many of you struggle with that today. That's why imposter syndrome is such a big deal right now. I remember one time in particular, I was working for a buddy of mine, and it's so funny. I was working with him at a church, right? And so we went on the road. I moved to go travel and work with him. And then he decided, we're going to be pastors. And I was like, well, what am I going to do for a job? And then he hired me as an associate pastor. And I was kind of like, what are you doing? And he's like, dude, you have the skills, you have the mindset, and I can teach you what you don't know. And I thought to myself, I don't know. And literally, no joke, for an entire year, every day I walked into work, I thought I was gonna get fired. Like, you have no idea what I felt, because I was like, I'm not qualified, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't think I'm that holy. But what I figured out about a year in was this. He was my mentor, he was my big brother, he knew what he was doing, and he knew where he was grooming me towards. The only thing that was in the way was this big old blockhead. So I finally said, what would happen if you let go of that thought? And I did. And all of a sudden I started blooming. People started respecting the space that I held. When I started sharing messages people were receiving and comprehending and offering feedback, I started teaching and training more. It allowed me to step into a brand new space. As a matter of fact, that space then allowed me to move to Chicago and continue some of that work. But it wasn't until I got out of my own way. As a matter of fact, that was a phrase I used to hear a lot. Marquis, you're amazing. You just got to get out of your own way. Have you ever heard that before? Like you're your only roadblock? You're your only stumbling block? You just got to get out of your own way? Well, that's what happens with that whole imposter syndrome, that whole I'm not good enough. I have a question for you. How's that working out? Yeah, it isn't, is it? Because what happens is we then pull away. We stop pursuing life. We just accept whatever comes. King of it. Oh, find the silver lining. Everything's going to be all right. And I still find the silver lining, and that is something you should do. But if that's your default, it was mine. Then what happens is you don't ever experience the opportunities life has for you because you're always trying to make good with whatever you get because you're supposed to be grateful. Such an overrated idea and concept. The reality is that you were designed and born to have the best of the best in any category that your heart so desires. For you religious folk, the scripture says that he will give you the desires of your heart. Well, that shows up two different ways. Either one, the universe God has given you the desire, which means it's holy and good, or the desire is coming from within you, but he still gave it to you, which means it's still holy and good. The only problem is this. So when are you going to let go? When are you going to stop saying no to you? When are you going to stop just accepting whatever life delivers because you got to be grateful? Yeah, I'm pausing on purpose. I want you to really think about that and answer that for yourself. At what point will you decide my mortality is real and that life is only going by seemingly faster day by day and choose to take a risk and bet on you? At what point will you stop surrendering your future, your destiny, your current state on everybody else? At what point will you stop trying to be a people pleaser? At what point? I had to ask myself these questions. But when I decided enough was enough and that I was going to bet on me, my entire life slowly but surely began to open and open and open. So for those of you who are ready now to start saying yes to you, that's actually the first step. those desires of yours, say yes to them. Now, I know you may not know exactly how things are going to work out. And for some of you, it might mean you're going to have to let some things go. Not comfortable, I got it. But that leads us to the second step. Because you're doing something new, even though it's actually right, you're going to have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Let me say that again. You're going to have to get comfortable with feeling awkward. Am I doing the right thing? I don't know. You're going to have to get comfortable with that uncomfortableness. A good friend of mine years back taught me this thing here. He said selfishness has been deemed a negative word, but the reality is that selfishness is a healthy term, and we all need to have a level of selfishness because we can't give what we don't have. If you don't do the inner work, it's not going to show up in life. The inner work requires selfishness. It requires focus. It requires quiet time. It requires meditation. It requires study. It requires reading. It requires letting go. It requires questioning yourself to open up and discover you. And the last thing, you're going to fail. Yeah, there's going to be issues or you're going to experience failure. But I have great news for you. I think I've told you this before, but I'll remind you because you're starting this new journey. You can't fail. You're not a process. You're not a machine. You're a living organism. And living organisms only expand, move, change because you're a source of energy. And therefore, you can't fail. Well, wait, Marquise, I don't understand. I got an F in school or that business failed. Yeah, the process or the steps you took didn't work in either instance, but that doesn't make you a failure. The only time you actually fail is when you don't try. This is Marquise Martin Hayes. This has been your Monday Moment. Peace.